Can I proceed?
No, he wanted to know if he may proceed. The commissioners were engaged, so we thought.
No, you may.
You may, okay.
Just engaging with Annex MK15. Yeah.
Okay. Before you turn to page 270, please. That's MK15, and please explain who you say the author is Lieutenant General Jacobs. Who is he? And just highlight the date of that report. Then you can deal with its conclusions.
The report from Gerald Jacobs is dated the 30th of July 2025.
And you say who is, what position does General Jacobs hold and in what body?
Commissioners, if you allow me to indicate on this, it's a report that comes out from Gerald Jacobs as we're interrogating on what he did back then, which then supports the response to the office of the minister, which eventually a response that the National Commissioner had provided to the office of the minister with regard to the fact that they were struggling to get hold of Mr. Adams, and they could not therefore finalize their report. In the same reference, because I want to answer this question of the date of the report. There is on page, in the same annexure, on page 285. Page 285, the commissioners are going to see that is an information note that General Jacobs, I'll say that is a report, if I understand that General Jacobs sent via the office of the National Commissioner to the Minister of Police. And in this report, the person who signed is the acting divisional commissioner, who's Major General Dladla, and this acting divisional commissioner was acting in the position of Jacobs at the time. You'll see that one is dated the 4th of November, in line with the minister's timelines of dealing with the complaint. Remember, the complaint, Mr. Adams registered on the 1st of November, and the minister's office asked that the response be provided, the outcome of the investigation be provided to his office on the 4th of November. So this was complied with. The response was provided on the 4th of October, as it was signed by the acting divisional commissioner and confirmed by the acting national commissioner at the time on the 5th of November, which is General Sibia. And it landed in the minister's desk, and the minister endorsed his signature on this document on the 8th of November of the same month. So the date that I'm now talking about of the 30th of July, it's when Jacobs is finishing us with the information that explains what he did back then. So that's why I wanted to make sure that these two dates are not mixed up. The question is, who is General Jacobs? General Jacobs is a divisional commissioner of inspectorate in the South African Police Service. The South African Police Service being an old department of government, back in the days, it was not the culture within government to have auditors. The culture of auditors is new. So an oversight entities that were available at the time within the police was the inspectorate that was doing an oversight, conducting compliance with policies and directives, standing orders within the police, and the failure thereof will come with consequences. So that's how the division was born. And of course, nowadays, we then adopted the King's reports, the recommendations that introduce the audits And that's why we even have an internal audit in the police that help us to audit the work we do in compliance with both the Act and policies and directives that are issued in the organization. But inspectorate remains within the structure of the police. So that is what General Jacobs is responsible for. So the complaints, when they come into the police, they get directed to the very same structure. So it's basically like in the terms of education, I will say it's I don't know whether the inspectors are still there in education, who goes around different schools and check the compliance. That's what inspectorate does. It's like a school principal that checks on everyone in the police. So that is basically the profile of General Jacobs. The good thing about this advantage we have is that General Jacobs was once a divisional commissioner of crime intelligence. So the complaints that talks about crime intelligence, he's in a better position to even understand what's going on. Besides the fact that he worked there, the inspectorate have access to all the departments, all the divisions in the police. So therefore, he had access to dockheads, he has access to intelligence, although limited within crime intelligence in terms of secret fund account. But in general, he has access to many places within the police.
Can I find out, if I understand your testimony correctly? So the function of the inspectorate is to act on complaints received against the police and triggers an interrogation and investigation into the alleged conduct.
That is correct.
And subjects the police to scrutiny, the level of which I guess will be determined by the nature of the complaint.
That is correct.
And you pointed out that, and you state in your statement, that General Jacobs, in his report, indicates that he failed despite numerous attempts to engage with Mr. Adams.
That is correct.
Now, I want to tell you to page 280, please. And that is the end of the conclusion of General Jacobs' report. And to read item 8, which is the conclusion, his conclusion in regard to the complaint.
On his recommendations on this, you said 287. Am I right?
I was reading the report of the 30th of July, Annexure MK 15, that is the report from General Jacobs.
Yes.
You have it? It starts at 270.
Yes.
And I referred you to the conclusion that he draws under 8 at page 280.
Okay, the last paragraph on 280 reads, this office is of the considered view that the process followed to obtain, peruse, and hand over the 7 criminal dockets are above board and conducted without any malice.
Do you know whether there has been any further investigation by the inspectorate regarding the complaints of Mr. Adams beyond this report?
I am not aware of such. Commissioner, I want to, in order not to be confused on this Jacobs letter that we are talking about now, which is reflected from 273 and ending with the paragraph that I just read on 280, which is dated the 30th of July, 2025. As you can see, this one ends with Gerald Masimula as a recipient of this report. So this is a report that was recently done as the explanation that Gerald Jacobs was explaining to the National Commissioner with regard to the status of case dockets. So they might have been, I might have put them in the same bundle, but I think it's important for me to differentiate between the two.
Yes.
They're in the same annexure, but the one of Gerald Jacobs and that was investigating the complaint of Mr. Adams It's the one that starts on number 285 in the same annex. That one, 285, and it ends with the signature from Inspectorate at 287.
Yes.
Maybe if I may read those recommendations on the record on 287.
So the one starting at 285 is the information note.
This information note is actually the outcome of Jacob's investigation as expected by the minister was supposed to be submitted on the 4th.
Okay, and that is dated for the record the 4th of November 2024.
Exactly.
Okay, deal with
so
it,
the recommendations on that one, it reads, there are 3 of them. It says this office recommends that an extension of 10 working days is provided in order for the following to be considered, whereafter a comprehensive report can be provided.
Yes.
Number 1, interview the complainant and obtain a detailed affidavit. Number 2, perusal of all criminal dockets, including the Vilera case 38 of 8/2022. Determine if any other government department is investigating the same allegations. That is the recommendations from Gerald Jacobs. You'll notice, commissioners, that in paragraph 3.2 on the same letter at number 286, I'm going to read on record this paragraph, if you're allowed.
Yes, please proceed.
An officer from Division Inspectorate who was in Cape Town on other official business made several attempts to conduct an interview with the complainant, but due to other commitments, the complainant had to cancel the proposed meetings. The complainant indicated that he could travel to Gauteng if required. That is part of what they are indicating as part of them causing the delay, hence they're asking for the extension of time, that they were not able to interview the complainant in this regard. So that is what Jacobs has done. Now, if I go back into what the SC is asking me in relation to the letter 273,
yes,
up to the end of that letter. This letter is providing an explanation, commissioners, with regard to the incident that occurred as we are investigating, as I said, the issue of what has happened, and we are going backward. And we discover that the dockets open in Cape Town, and these dockets in Cape Town and in Johannesburg are then transferred or taken by Inspectorate. So we wanted to establish how do Inspectorate get hold of these dockets? And then Inspectorate explained we got hold of these dockets because of the complaint from Mr. Adams. That's why we are going backward, because we started with what is a complaint, the dockets, where do they come from? They come from here. Let's go and check these dockets. We found there in those stations, the dockets are not there. Where are they? They are taken by Inspectorate. So we gone to Inspectorate. Inspectorate, what's happening with this docket? And Inspectorate then explains that, no, we got hold of these dockets because we're investigating a complaint. And what thereafter happened to this complaint that we're investigating? What happened to these dockets? And then you're going to see another department coming in that while we're in possession of these dockets, investigating the complaint of Mr. Adams, then suddenly IDEC, which is an independent body within the NPA, newly established, comes to Inspectorate to demand the dockets. So this report was explaining that although they took the dockets because of this complaint, but the dockets were eventually taken by IDEC from them. So these dockets ended up with IDEC. But we're going to explain the issue as the SC is trying to lead in terms of putting an evidence of how the sequence of these things has been happening. As the picture emerges, of answering the question of interference of politicians in the work that we are doing as a police.
Thank you. General, that then would lead you, because you have introduced it already, to paragraph 180 of your statement at page 59.
Yes.
Are you there? And you deal with these issues up to paragraph 185. Once again, if you could just summarize what the complaint is. And this concerns the minister's office. And in relation to the complaint as leveled by Mr. Adams.
Commissioners, we are aware that the National Commissioner, through Gerald Jacobs, through the Office of the National Commissioner, had responded on the complaint of Mr. Adams and requested those 10 days, of which the minister has acknowledgement of that, although he doesn't comment. And that he does on the 8th of November. On the 11th of November, the minister's office, chief of staff, specifically Mr. Nkabinde, directed a letter which he signed personally. He directed a letter to IDEC, which is an independent directorate against corruption. And it directs this letter to IDEC in respect of the case dockets that were both open in Cape Town and in Orlando. The copy of the letter is attached and on this statement and marked MK 16.
That's at page 309.
This letter, commissioners will read, and you can see all the case numbers are listed and signed by the Chief of Staff, Mthokozisi Nkabinde, dated the 11th of November, 2024. This letter claims that the minister's office is submitting this and requesting, in terms of section 27 of the NPA Act 32 of 1998. They are alleging that this matter is of a serious nature that involves corruption of the police, and therefore they are inviting IDEC. They are approaching IDEC in terms of section 27 to investigate these cases. It is unclear why the Chief of Staff decided or elected to act on his behalf. He signs it himself, although using the letterhead of the minister, but he's a Chief of Staff. Despite the fact that the minister had acknowledged the report from Inspectorate. Despite the fact that on the 8th, the minister acknowledged the report from the Inspectorate about the same complaint, but the Chief of Staff personally signs this letter and he invites IDEC to conduct investigation in terms of section 27 complaint.
General, apologies, just so we don't lose each other. MK 16, which is the letter from the minister's office signed by the Chief of Staff to IDEC, is
Yes.
dated the 11th of November 2024.
Yes.
And your issue is that that letter is dispatched, notwithstanding the report provided by the inspectorate to the minister.
That's correct.
And that report is the one you pointed out to, dated the 4th of November, wherein the Office of General Jacobs sought an extension to investigate.
That's correct.
And that was dated the 4th of November. So technically, the inspectorate has not reported back to the minister as to the outcome of its investigations regarding this complaint. Thank you.
the 10 days is not even up at that stage.
It's not over. 10 days is not over. I must indicate, commissioners, that documents ordinarily that comes to the minister, they go via the chief of staff. So the chief of staff had, in that document we referred to earlier, from the national commissioner to the minister, which is authored by inspectorate, dated the 4th, the national commissioners acting signs on the 5th, and the minister acknowledged that in the minister's office, they've acknowledged it on the 5th, on the same day the national commissioner signed it, or the acting Jaras Beer, on the 5th, they acknowledged that letter on the stamp that is placed on 285 on top right corner there. There's an indication that the minister's office receives it on the 5th. Although the minister then, after reading it, he then signs it on the 8th. So the letter is authored the 4th, national commission signs on the 5th, the minister's office received on the 5th, the minister himself acknowledged, signs this document on the 8th. So the request of 10 days has not lapsed, because 2 days later, the 11th, we then see the chief of staff signs, writes a letter to IDEC. So he's basically asking IDEC to take this docket. I must maybe indicate again, commissioners, while we are still on this point, that the complaint of Mr. Adams that was sent to the minister, I said earlier that Mr. Adams sent an email a day after opening a case. He sent an email directly to the minister, and subsequent to that, other emails were then sent to the chief of staff. I would invite the commissioners to look at Annex 14.
That's on page 265.
These are emails, reference of emails that Mr. Adams forwarded to the office of the Minister of Police.
Apologies. You are correct. It starts at page 265. The actual email is at 266. Is that the email you are looking for?
And on top of that, now this is emails from Mr. Adams. As you can see, I'll just read one of them. The very first one on 266, it is from Sakiana Frenchman, Parliament, and is dated the 1st of November at 8:25 in the morning, 2024. It's addressed to Nkabinde CM at scps.gov.za. That is the chief of staff of the minister. And there are many other emails. And I want to move forward to invite the commission to look at the same reference on 283.
That's part of an extra MK15.
Yes.
Yes.
283.
Yes, and it's a series of emails as well.
Yeah, those are the trailing emails. The one on top, which I want to indicate to the commissioners, that Mr. Nkabinde, who is the chief of staff, you will remember that what I showed you earlier was the email that came from Mr. Adams' office, dated the 1st of November, around 8 in the morning.
Yes.
At 9:04, the same morning, the chief of staff, on the same date, the chief of staff sent this complaint directly to the office of the National Commissioner. The recipients, the Sibula FGFM Major General and Letogo GH Brigadier, they are both administrators at the office of the National Commissioner. So this just to show the sequence, that the chief of staff received it within an hour on receipt of the email. He already directed this complaint to the office of the National Commissioner.
I'm looking, sorry to interrupt you, General. I'm looking at the email of 8:25 on the 1st of November, 2024. It says in paragraph 2, I was told that the dockets were intercepted. This comes after the dockets have been itemized. And then it refers to another set of dockets. And then it says that the same modus operandi was followed. I'm just trying to place myself, in the place of the recipient of this email. I would have gone back to the sender and said, what on earth are you talking about? To just say, I have learned that the dockets have been intercepted, and then you refer to another set of dockets and you say the same thing was done. What exactly was the interception, by whom, at what point? And when you say the same was done, what exactly is the same? I would, if I was the recipient, I would have gone back to the sender and said, what on earth are you talking about? And ask for some specificity instead of then forwarding this to someone else to respond or to make a follow-up. Looking at this, I'm totally lost as to what Mr. Adams was talking about, or MP Adams was talking about. Do you want to comment on that?
Exactly, Commissioners. It is part of what we uncover as we investigate. All these strange things that are happening, that takes us to us reaching the conclusion that is part of a bigger plan of things. So these are puzzles that we are trying to put together as we're investigating. Because on the same page, Commissioner 283, you have both emails that are reflected there. The one at the bottom comes from Mr. Adams, and look specifically at the time. It is 8:21:01 in the morning of the 1st of November 2024. It is directed specifically to the minister himself, not to Ngabeni. This one. The one I referred to earlier was directed to Ngabeni. This one is strictly to Edward Senzo Mtun. His email address, the minister directly. I said earlier there were other emails that followed thereafter to Ngabeni, but this one was specific. It went straight to the minister at 8:21 in the morning. On the same day, on the 1st of November, a couple of minutes later, less than an hour, the chief of staff at 9:04 in the morning, the chief of staff forwarded this complaint to the National Commissioner's office. So I would have expected the very same minister to ask those questions, Commissioner. And because the logic tells you, you open a case the day before and you're complaining today in the morning. So it means overnight there was an interception in your conclusion. I don't think it's a fair process, conclusion that Mr. Adams will have reached. But nonetheless, the minister did not ask Mr. Adams a question, neither the chief of staff. But what's interesting here, Commissioners, is that this email from the chief of staff to the National Commissioner's office reads, and I want to quote it on record. Good morning, Major General Sebola. As I said, Sebola is at the office of the National Commissioner. But the chief of staff says, the ministry has received this complaint from the member of parliament. In order for the ministry to respond accordingly, please finish this office with a report in responding to this complaint and the details of the investigating officer who was assigned to investigate these cases. Your report is expected on Monday, the 4th of November at 1500 hours. So this is the timelines that are given by the chief of staff who says the ministry. I like to believe perhaps the chief of staff will have received directive from his boss, which is a minister in this regard. But then we come back into what we're talking about, then becomes strange that after the 4th of November, timeline has been met by inspectorate, although the minister received it on the 5th. The very same chief of staff then writes a letter under the minister's signature, a heading ministry, cover letter, and he sends this thing to IDEC.
Now, you referenced the report from the inspectorate dated the 4th of November. And we understand from that report that a request for an extension was, there was a request for an extension.
That's correct.
And then you say the chief of staff directed a request for investigation to IDEC on the 8th of November.
The 11th.
On the 11th of November,
11th.
I apologize. If I could refer you to Annexure MK15, it's part of that pack. I see there at page 289 a further report, and this is dated the 20th of November 2024. It's signed by General Jacobs PA on his behalf. Do you see that?
Yes, Commissioners.
I would like you to, it would appear that this report is in response to the complaint originally received, specifically regarding the Cape Town files and the Orlando files. That's captured at 2.1.1 and 2.1.2. And 2.2, they deal with the inspector deals with the instruction received from the National Commissioner. I would like you to have regard and read into the record the conclusion drawn at 2.2.1.
The 2.2.1 of the information note
Yes.
that is annexed on 289.
That's correct.
2.2.1, you said?
2.2.1.
Yeah, a report was compiled wherein the allegations that there was interference from both the provincial offices were reported to be unfounded.
And this was in relation to the question the chairperson posed to you about what interference was being referenced. And am I reading the document correctly that General Jacobs, by the 20th of November, had concluded that the allegation of interference was unfounded?
That's correct.
Now, just to close on that, if I refer you to, in the same document, to page 290, it's item 3.3, if you could read that into the...
As part of the protocols to address service complaints, an affidavit is obtained from the complainant. Colonel Phillips of this office was tasked to obtain the affidavit. However, after numerous attempts, it seems as if the complainant is evading the request. Please find Colonel Phillips' affidavit as proof hereof.
Now, am I correct in understanding that the conclusion is in part based on the fact that the inspectorate could not obtain an affidavit as required from the complainant to substantiate the claim?
That is correct.
At paragraph 180, you have dealt with this letter already, that the chief of staff refers the same complaint to IDEC. Do you know the status of that complaint within IDEC as we speak?
I'm not privy to the status of the complaint since the dockets were taken to IDEC.
Okay.
They operate outside the police.
And there, as far as you know, there have been no engagements. Do you know whether or not there have been any engagements with the police from the affected police stations, which is Cape Town and Orlando, in respect of these case numbers?
What I am privy to, Commissioners, is that General Jacobs' office, after receiving this docket as part of the investigation, they were approached by IDEC requesting that they hand over those case dockets of Gauteng in the main, and General Jacobs refused to hand over the dockets. And they then, IDEC wrote to a head of crime detection in the police, it is Lieutenant General Sentumuli, they wrote to her requesting the dockets. And she then contacted Gerald Jacobs and asked Gerald Jacobs to release the dockets to IDEC. Now, IDEC is led by an individual, and it is an entity of the NPA as a prosecution. The inspectorate, the detective services is led by individuals, which is part of the South African Police Service as a department, which is led by the National Commission. But the correspondence from the NPA to the police does not include the people in charge of the two entities. It includes the head of IDEC and the head of investigation. So the correspondence between the two and the authority is granted by the police detectives and instructing inspectorate to release the docket, and then dockets were then taken by IDEC. To date, those dockets are sitting with IDEC.
I see in your state.
I'm just surprised that there would have been this much effort, this much laborious activity, all of it stemming from a non-complaint by Adams MP. I mean, with that one-liner in respect of the one category of dockets, and then another one-liner in respect of the second category of dockets, and then there's this much activity and effort. In fact, it just does not make sense that the Inspectorate of Subs should have been required to even give a report. Of course, I'm just expressing a view based purely on the fact that what initiated all of this was a non-complaint. It's totally not substantiated. So what the Chief of Staff, or what he refers to as the ministry, what they should have done was to go back to Adams MP and ask for specificity before all of this laborious activity was then engaged in. Do you want to comment on that, General?
Commissioner, my comment might be to some degree perhaps being biased, because I'm the one that is combing through all what is happening. Perhaps I must indicate to the Commissioner that what led us to able to comb through all these what has transpired is in two phases. One is information I get through my sources within IDEC that there is activities that are happening with IDEC that are not in line with what the purpose of the formation of the entity is. And that there are two structures within IDEC. There's a good structure that deals with the Zondo Commission, and there's another structure that is malicious, that is used as a weapon to further disrupt the criminal justice system operations. So I get that through my sources within IDEC. That's on one. That's how I was able to get this letter. It's not a letter that was given to me on request from the Chief of Staff. No, I got it through the sources. And the Chief of Staff cannot deny it, or the Minister cannot deny it, because it's got his signature as a legitimate letter. IDEC has that because they called for the docket informed by this letter, so they can't deny the letter. It's a picture that we started picking up. That is on one side through the information. But secondly, Commissioner, when we see the disruption of the investigation of the Gauteng counterintelligence operations, we then begin to ask ourselves why this is happening. What is much talked about in the media that is not known is the arrest of General Khumalo. So we have this arrest. When this arrest happens, it literally means this project must stop. This investigation of this organized crime must stop immediately because the people are arrested. We start investigating out.
I hope I've not muted. I hope I've not muted.
No, I didn't.
Just, can we still hear the general, all of us?
Yeah, I can hear
at the back there. Okay. Before you continue, General, I just want to say that, of course, it's early days, and my comment about a non-complaint should not be taken